On today's episode of the Locked On Hornets podcast, we've got Nata Edwards here, and he's here to talk about the NBA Draft Combine, which opinions have shifted most on which players. We'll get into that. Plus, I'm going to play my favorite game with Nata, and that's Chance, Nata Chance. That's all ahead today on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Hornets. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making us your first listen, or maybe it's your first watch on YouTube. Every day we are free and daily wherever you get podcasts, and that includes on YouTube, where you can see my face. You can see our guest today, family member, Nata Edwards. You can see his smiling face on here, ready to talk some NBA Draft Combine. Walker Mail couldn't make it today. Storms, once again, acts of God getting in the way of the production of this show, but we soldier on. And because we've got NBA Draft Combine, because the NBA Draft approacheth, and we cannot stop this train. But you can catch Walker Mail on WFNZ 12 to 3 every weekday. You can get more of my work on Every Hornets Boxscore, and you can get more of Nata as producer of the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Nata, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm disappointed that Walker couldn't make it.
He's dodging you. Listen, I'm just going to be honest with you now at this point. There's 2 straight shows now where you've been on and Walker couldn't make it, and I would take it personally if I were you.
I'm trying not to, but also I know, like, because I can call him and harass him and just basically call him a punk, I just may do that as soon as we're finished taping this.
I love it. It sounds like, Nata, your opinion is quickly shifting on Walker Mail, and because he's dodging you and he doesn't want to be on the show and you're on the show. So let's stay on that track, though. Opinions changing because we've got the NBA Draft Combine. People are jumping, people are running, people are sprinting, they're scrimmaging. And I want to know, from your perspective, we've got all of these names dancing around the 6th pick for the Charlotte Hornets, Castle, Klingon, Holland, all of these names. What opinions have changed most for you on which players since you've seen them at the Combine?
Again, the biggest change I probably have involves Stephon Castle. He's been number 1 or number 2 on my board basically for like the last 3 weeks.
Now, for clarity's sake, number 1 on your Hornets board or number 1 on your overall board?
Number 1 on my Hornets board. Sar is the only superstar in this draft as far as I'm concerned.
Superstar.
Yeah, superstar. But since that's not possible for the attainable guys that I thought were available, Stephon Castle was going to have the biggest impact. At this point, after he tested 6'5", he's going to essentially be 6'7" in shoes, and with a standing reach of 8'7", I think he's out too. I do think that Stephon Castle is probably going to be a top 3, top 4 pick in this draft. So I don't think he's going to be there. And then the backup plan, which was Donovan Klingon, I'm not sure he's going to be there either, because we're talking, again, you see a series like a Minnesota series where you have these centers that are doing all this damage, and you have centers that are disrupting and creating a whole bunch of just disruption from the rim protection side. There's no way you can tell me a guy like Donovan Klingon is going to last past 5 in this draft. So that's the biggest change I have, is that I don't think the Hornets are going to be in the market for Donovan Klingon and or Stephon Castle, because I think they'll both be gone by the top 5 picks at this point.
Yeah, look, I like Klingon, but the Castle take there is heartbreaking to me. I hope it's not true. I wish. Who was the guy from Villanova last year that I fell in love with, who had a really precipitous fall because of some
Cam Whitmore?
Yeah, Cam Whitmore. So why can't Castle be like Cam Whitmore and have a weird thing in interviews, or a weird thing in an injury concern, so that he can fall to the Hornets? Because I feel like this happens if the Hornets don't jump up in the draft to get the 3rd pick or the 2nd pick. Then I feel like they're always a pick or 2 away from a player, and sometimes it happens like this, where early consensus will get around a guy like Castle because the fit is so obvious, because he is such a defensive stalwart, and you cannot you cannot have an interview with Charles Lee or Jeff Peterson at this point where they don't mention the word competitiveness, and that's a word that hangs around Castle a lot too. And so, like, the fit is perfect, and so everybody was like, yeah, Hornets 6, Castle makes so much sense, and now you're saying to me Castle is going to move up in this draft. That's disappointing to me.
Because and there are people that are going to yell at me about this in the YouTube comments, which, yes, I do read them, and that's my own fault. But at the same point, I would also say, quite literally, Stephon Castle is one of the few guys that you can say is coming into this draft with a known NBA skill, and that's defense. Defense is very much a skill. He is going to be an impact, at least league average defender out of the box as a rookie. And if you know anything about the league, being that as a rookie is a very, very, very high compliment at this point. I can't say that about too many other guys. Sarr's defense is going to be there. If you're going to tell me Reed Sheppard's perimeter shooting is going to be a plus skill out of the box, I would agree with you. But when you're telling me you have a competitive guy that fills in the gaps and can be a secondary playmaker, he's tailor-made for the Charlotte Hornets. He will not be there because I feel like if you're Houston, you have to look into this. If you're San Antonio, you absolutely have to look into this. And for everything that's wrong with Washington, a culture guy that is defense first and fits around Bilal Coulibaly makes a lot of sense at 2, even especially if you're not sure about Versace, or if you're not sure about Topic, or you're not sure about Klingon or any of these other guys. Again, Stephon Castle is a known commodity at this point. Those guys, especially in a draft like this, are not guys you just pass over because you think of a higher upside guy.
Well, and Topic just got hurt again. And so,
Yep.
And I know it's not like or at least I read it wasn't a serious injury, but at the same time, you wonder if that gives some folks that were considering him top 5 a little bit of caution, and then that would, then they've got to pick somebody else. And like you said, I mean, Castle is showing out right now and moving up board. So we'll keep an eye on that. I want to go back to another name you just mentioned there, though, Reed Sheppard. Max Vert of 42 inches as a point guard. He beat out a lot of centers and power forwards and small forwards who were jumping. His athleticism, it's not off the charts. It was on the charts. But, what do you think about Reed Sheppard? You mentioned the three-point shooting, but are you concerned about the Hornets taking someone, even though he has the athleticism, even though he has the vertical, taking someone of that size to pair alongside LaMelo Ball or pair alongside anyone on this guard roster right now?
To be quite honest with you, I don't have him on the Hornets board right now because the Hornets, one, have a lot of guys 6'4" and under in their guard rotation. And I understand that prior drafts and prior roster stuff should not dictate what you have here, but it's going to dictate how you move the rest of those guys. At the same portion, we're seeing teams like OKC. We're seeing teams like Denver. We're seeing teams like Minnesota that are playing how many guys under 6'5"? Maybe 1 or 2? I'm not sure going forward, roster build-wise, you can have that many guys under 6'3", and especially when you already have a LaMelo Ball, you have a Brandon Miller. I'm not sure. My question, especially in this draft with a Reed Sheppard, is he ever going to be more than a sixth man on a really good team? And so far, I'm not sure the answer is yes to that. I don't think he's a starter. I know there are people that believe in the talent, believe in the skill level, but for me, like NBA fit wise, what is he going to be? Are you going to be comfortable having him as your backup point guard if you're the Charlotte Hornets? Because until LaMelo Ball is moved off this roster, he's the starting point guard unless health dictates otherwise.
One more name before actually I have 2 more names, but I'm going to save. I want to talk about Zach Edey in the next segment. Yes. I'm going to tease ahead to Edey because it's so interesting. Everyone had him as, a possible second rounder, classic big guy who dominates college basketball, but it's not going to be fast enough, quick enough to make it in the pros. And now all of a sudden these talk about opinion shifting. They're starting to shift now on Edey, but I want to save that because I want to have a larger discussion about that. Another guy, Ron Holland. These names are all over the place in terms of where they're landing on people's boards. I just saw Hollinger has Holland number 1 on his board. I haven't seen Holland number 1 on anyone's board since last year. Now, what you've seen at the Combine from Holland and what you know about Holland, I guess, sell me on it. Because, look, I mean, if Castle goes and a few of these other guys go, Klingon goes top 5, the Hornets are going to have to find someone to take here at 6. Sell me on Ron Holland being that guy, despite the shooting struggles and despite maybe his measurements coming in a little lower than people thought.
To be honest with you, Hollinger helped sell me on this because, as he points out, the only other person that's had a better G League season for one and doneer was Jalen Green, and he went 2 in a much more loaded draft. I think because of what Ron Holland has, the physical gifts, there's a lot of DeMar DeRozan to his game for me. If you're telling me that you're going to balance this out with a LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and you have a guy like Ron Holland that can get to the cup, hit the mid-range, do a bunch of different things, there's a little, I don't want to use Jaylen Brown, but there's some Jaylen Brown tendencies to his game that I really do like. And I do think that if you are going to bring in the coaching staff that you have right now, he's the type of guy that you're going to say, okay, I'm bringing in all these development coaches that help with Larry Markkinen, that help get DeRozan to where we were actually legitimately talking about him being an MVP candidate for the first half of the season. If these guys can coach and develop to the strengths of these guys, I don't think I might put him above Castle in terms of physical gifts and what he can do for you long term. I like Holland as the number 1 guy that's probably going to be available at 6 right now because of the physical gifts and the coaching staff. And if you believe in the player development of this coaching staff, then I don't think you can pick anyone other than Holland at this point if Castle and Kling are gone.
Wow. Oh, landed the plane there. Beautiful dismount on the take. Nata, do you do this professionally? This is great. All right.
Just a little bit.
All right. Keep it up. Here we go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I want to talk Zach Edey. Okay, because every time we do an episode on the draft, people jump into the comments and say, we want Edey. Someone wants Edey. So we're going to talk about Zach Edey because, some of these numbers out of the Combine are super interesting. Plus, Jeff Peterson was interviewed at the Combine. We'll get to one of his quotes, and we still got to play Chance, Not a Chance. That's all ahead today on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, looks like Zach Edey may have it all. eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets. More Locked On Edey ahead. Okay, Nata, talk to me about this Zach Edey guy, because I was all in on, Zach Edey, I know what he is. We can put him in this box of dominant college basketball, big guy who's not going to make it in the pros. I saw it firsthand with Tyler Hansbrough. It was heartbreaking because the guy dominates college basketball, but you know in your heart of hearts, even as you're watching him dominate, you know that the game is not going to translate to the NBA. And that seemed to be what was going to happen with Edey. Late second rounder, maybe he slips into the bottom of the first round because he is so enormous, like he's almost undeniable in that respect. But somehow he comes into the Combine and he starts shooting the three well. And he comes in even bigger, like he measures even bigger than people thought. How is that even possible? How could Zach Edey be bigger than you thought he was? What is he eating? What is Edey eating? And then on top of all of that, he beats Donovan Klingon in a three-quarters court sprint. So he's even a little bit faster than people were giving him credit for.
And the shuffle, and the side-to-side shuffle too.
Right. So all of these things happen, and then you've got Jonathan Givony, who, I'm on record, phony Givony. I don't know what this. I don't know if he's gassing us all up, gaslighting us. I don't know what's happening here. But Givony is saying that there are teams in the top 10 right now, and last time I checked, the Hornets were in the top 10 that were considering Edey for the pick. So Nata, what do you do with all of that? What do you do with the measurements? And then you know what I'm going to ask you next. Do the Hornets consider Edey at number 6?
I don't think they consider Edey at 6. I think the measurements they match up with what film shows for the most part. I can't say this is out of like left field. He's testing for the combine. There may be a little bit of that, but a lot of this does track. And Edey was always, at least to me, going to be a first rounder, whether it was going to be in the late first round or whether it was going to be in the lottery, because we all knew how weak this draft kind of was. Like, I can see the vision. I can't go with spending a top 6 pick on him. I can't justify it. Now, if you're telling me someone wants to come up, like OKC wants to come up, maybe they give you a player, maybe a Josh Giddey or something like that to move back
Oklahoma
6
City
spots.
gives Hornets another player. That would be incredible.
Like literally, again, we become the home, basically the orphan home for the OKC Thunder that couldn't cut it. Like that would be interesting. But like, if you're telling me you draft him 9, 10, 11, 12 in this draft, I can understand. Because there's a place for Zach Edey in this league. It's a backup center. He's going to be supersized Boban, where you can play him 15, 20 minutes, get him some decent rim protection. If you're wanting to draft a center, but at the same time not necessarily willing to offend Mark Williams, this is a nice, germane way to go about it. But if you're telling me that this is your center of the future, that's where I am going to like stop you and be like, come on, we need to be a little bit serious. That's where you start looking into the G League guys. That's where you start looking into some of the other guys, because while the production is there, I think where he projects to the NBA to what he was in college, there's still a little decent gap in between.
I love that take, that it's a way to address your center depth and even the shooting. Look, if the shooting is real and the release is slow, like, I mean, but he's tall. I mean, he can get the ball up, above a lot of defenders that would try to come out and block it. So, I think there are some like Brook Lopez-ian options there for him to shoot.
Space Mountain,
right? Right. And so, it's a way to address all of that without, as you're saying, without it being a situation where it's like, well, what does Mark think about all this? Because Edey, obviously, it doesn't have this like superstar, we've got to find lots of playing time for him sort of reputation. But yeah, does he rocket all the way up to consideration for the 6th pick? And this is where the sort of mystery is for the Hornets in this draft. Yeah. At 6, are they looking for a player that could potentially pop off and be a star? Because Ron Holland, if they want that, I think Ron Holland has a little bit of that pop to him. Or do they want to play it safe? And I think Zach Edey would be a safe bet. And even if Zach Edey, even if you project him as like, late lottery is as high as he could go, but this draft is so question mark and weak that like I wouldn't mind the Hornets reaching 6 or 7 spots to get a guy if they thought he addressed multiple things and they really liked what they saw out of these individual workouts, which we haven't even gotten to yet. So we will see. But that brings me to a quote here from Jeff Peterson, the EVP of basketball operations. He was interviewed at the Combine, and this is an interesting quote when he was asked what kind of players he's looking for in Charlotte. And I watched this interview, and this question wasn't necessarily about the draft. This was sort of an open-ended question as he approaches all phases of building and rebuilding this team. He was asked, what is he looking for in terms of a player for the Charlotte Hornets? And he said, quote, "We want guys who are competitive, who love the game, who are going to be relentless in their approach." Nata, what did you think when you heard that quote from Jeff Peterson?
I was thinking that is the first of probably many warning shots to the only max player on this roster. I do think that they're going to have some, like, Jeff Peterson came in this early for a reason. Now there are going to be people that say no, it's not about LaMelo. LaMelo hasn't been in the building, and to which I would say exactly. Like the fact that he's not been in the building, the fact that there was no relationship given. And if he, like, granted, it's an ankle injury, there are a lot of things to worry about, but I do worry that there are these things where the ability, like his competitiveness has been called into question because he's not there. And at some point, like, I understand that, and like he's not there, but they give incomplete grades for that stuff. And incomplete isn't failing, but it's not good either. At some point, you got to show up. You got to be a professional. You've got to be relentless. And for the first 2.5 years, that's all we heard was, hey, this kid's relentless. This kid's this, this kid's that. At some point, like, that's got to go away. And especially when you're starting to get into that 40 million a year, 50 million a year, rookie max, baby max, like salary structure, the competitiveness has got to be there. And if not, then you're going to have to move on and move this and build this team around people that are actually going to be there, dig in, and actually play.
Yeah, these are all words right now. They're setting a foundation, and they're telling you, you know, kind of some of the buzzwords that they want to set out. And so the question will be for Peterson and now Charles Lee as the head coach, what does that look like in practice? Both in the larger sense and how they practice it, but also when they get, you know, behind the scenes in practice. Are players from the top, your LaMelo Balls and your Brandon Millers and possibly your Miles Bridgeses, are they held to a high standard, just like some of your lower tier guys, or is it a situation where some are treated with kid gloves? And because that's not how you build a culture. That's how you fail. That's how the Hornets have failed to build a culture. Anytime they get just a little bit something good, they like hold on to it and treat it with kid gloves and are not honest about some of the problems that are going on up and down the roster. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's good that they're saying these things now. And I'm just in a wait and see mode on what it means. I think it gives you some indication about what they're looking for in the draft. They're looking for a particular kind of guy. I'll be interested to see if Clifford is involved in this draft process at all. I've said before, I think Clifford's ideal role for me would be find the guy with the right attitude, czar, in the draft, right? Yeah. Czar of finding the guy with the right attitude, because he tends to, whether it be Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker, he tends to, you know, in the pre-draft process, glom on to players that, you know, end up having that certain like dog in them or want to, or whatever, you know, cliche you want to use there. He seems to be able to pick that guy out. It's just the Hornets as an organization can't seem to pick those guys. So hopefully they can turn that around.
They listened to him one time and one time only, and it was Brandon Miller, it appears to be. So there's that portion of this. There's also, like, the Peterson quote also kind of feels like hey, we really like Stephon Castle in this draft. That's the other portion of that quote that kind of stuck out to me, because everything he's talking about is everything you've ever heard mentioned about Stephon Castle in this draft process so far. So we're talking, again, they're talking about, hey, we want to change the culture of this to what it is. And you're right. You're very, very right about what is this going to look like in practice, because I think that you're going to have to basically treat this like, yo, this is a fresh start, and we're going to see who sticks with this and who doesn't. And you're going to see the results in summer, and you're going to see the results in the offseason. And then once you see those offseason results, and it goes back to a Clifford quote, like, you have to be right almost immediately. I think we're going to find out how many of these people, how many of these players actually believe in the Charles Lee experience by, again, September, October. And I think a lot of this is going to start to really make sense right around then.
Well, and how cutthroat are they going to be in terms of, look, if you're not with the program, then you're out? Because this Hornets organization has not been that for a long time. And don't take my word for it. Take Terry Rozier's word for it when he goes away and says, look, you know, some cultures are built for winning and some aren't. And the Hornets are not, because, look, when you don't live up to the standard, there's no repercussion. You're not shown the door. If you're not down with the culture in Miami, then you're out. You're playing in the G League, or you're playing for some other team. And so is that the kind of thing that they're going to establish? Will the new ownership group allow that? Will they allow the roster to hold on to some money and and sacrifice some of that, and go and spend to replace that player with a veteran player who does have that kind of attitude. That's really what it's going to come down to, because look, Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson can say all they want about competitiveness and relentlessness, and here's the kind of guy we want. It's all, and you can ask Steve Clifford this, it's all about, are you willing to go out and get that player, spend that money, and build that kind of roster? So we're going to see. Before we do Nata Chance, though, Nata, we haven't had you on since the Charles Lee hire. The last time we had you on, though,
famously
you
called
the process
a disaster.
Well, okay, maybe you still feel that way, but the end result is they got the guy that I think 99% of Hornets fans wanted them to get. So what's your takeaway on not only Charles Lee, but some of the guys that he's staffing up with now?
Quite honestly, I think it's been a home run. I've loved the process. I did not like the fact that they took this long to nail this down.
Right.
I do feel like they knew they had to move before, because I'm pretty sure they heard about what Phoenix was about to do, and essentially they did not want to feel like they had to compete with Ishbia and his money and what the Lakers were going to do. So I completely understand why they wanted to nail this down. I would have preferred to have this nailed down a lot sooner. Outside of that, it's been home run after home run. I do like the staff. I do believe the staff is built on developing what's already here. So I do believe that Jeff Peterson believes he's got enough talent to be competitive. Whether that's competitive enough for a playing game, to be determined. But at this point, I do feel like he has a staff that can bring out the best and develop properly. And that's something that I think we all wanted here in Charlotte at this point.
All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We're playing a game of Chance, Nata Chance. There's going to be some sting in here, some inside the NBA, and the draft. I've got a chance, not a chance that I just thought of on the NBA draft. So you'll want to stick around for that. That's coming up. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. Right now, my stressor is, what are the Hornets going to do with this draft pick? Are they going to keep it? Are they going to nail it? Are they going to trade it? It's stressing me out. And when we keep those stresses bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively, and that's why I put a microphone in front of my face and start yamming. But also what you can do is you can try BetterHelp. Therapy is a safe place to get things off of your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever is weighing you down. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist anytime for no additional charge, because not everyone has a daily podcast. Try BetterHelp. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's all one word. Smush it together. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets. Back here on the podcast, thanks so much for making us your first listen or your first watch every day. Nata, it's time once again. We're playing Chance.
My favorite game.
That's right. Chance, Nata Chance. There is no middle ground. There is no nuance. There is no This is either there's a chance that this happens or there's not a chance. And the first thing I want to do is go back to the draft and talk about making the pick or trading the pick. We'll do trading the pick, chance, not a chance. And I'll say it because of this. When I was listening to Jeff Peterson talk, that guy sounded like a guy that just got hired and wanted to make his first draft pick. So chance, not a chance, they trade this pick.
Can I get some clarity on this question?
They trade completely out of the first round. They do not make a pick in the first round.
Not a chance.
Okay.
Not a chance.
Tell me why.
No chance. I do think that because of the perception of this draft, I don't think we're going to get the player caliber that is going, like, I don't think necessarily that there's going to be that player caliber, like someone's going to trade a Brandon Ingram for one of these top 5, top 6, top 10 picks. I don't think that's coming because I don't think everybody believes in this draft the way that everyone thinks. I do think that if you want a Josh Giddey, you might be able to trade a pick, but even then, That's going to require a lot of like player development in itself. I don't think trading for a guy like of a Josh Giddey caliber is worth trading this pick out, and I'm pretty sure Jeff Peterson doesn't see it that way either.
Man, I think you're right. I agree with you. I think they're going to make the pick at 6. I think they'll take a ton of calls. There'll be a lot of options for them to move back in the draft. I don't think they make their big move right now in terms of gathering up a bunch of picks and sending them off for a player. I think the Nets, as much as I would like the Hornets to trade for Mikal Bridges, I think the Nets are interested in giving it one more go, and they've just hired a new coach too. I think they're really interested in giving it a go. I don't think they're ready for full-scale rebuild yet. So I don't know if that player is sitting out there waiting to be had yet. So I think they're going to hold that card until next season. I do think they make the pick. I think if they were outside of the lottery, if this were, if they had made...
Oh, no, that pick is gone. That pick is gone.
Yeah, if they had made the play-in and they felt like they were a half step away from competing, then I think this would be an entirely different conversation. But I think the Hornets, I think they'll value, and I think Peterson in particular was talking about, hey, look, Charles Lee started as player development guy. Who was his first assistant coach hire? Lamar Skeeter, player development guy. Still their focus is on not only developing the players they've got now, but possibly this top 6 pick. I think they're definitely going to hold on to it as well. All right, Chance, Nata Chance. Let's go to some NBA news, and I'm sure you've seen this by now. Inside the NBA, TNT looks like they are on the verge of losing their NBA rights completely to NBC. And as much as people would love to hear basketball come back to their screens, they would hate to lose inside the NBA and have that crew break up. It's not official yet. Chance, not a chance. TNT actually pulls this out, keeps everything together, keeps the band together.
I say there's a chance, but it's like 2%.
Oh, but there's a chance.
There's a chance because last I read that Turner was trying to get the money out there. Turner also, as of this taping, sent Charles Barkley and Shaq up there.
Yeah, so go begging the advertisers, please look under your couch. Zaslav is out there looking under his couch cushions, going and asking his mama, his great aunt, going to estate sales.
I think there's a chance. I think we all laughed at the NBA for saying they wanted $75 billion, and what did they do? They went and got 76. Would it really surprise you if they ended up pulling out 77 just off of Warner Brothers Discovery realizing, oh crap, there's only so much baseball and everything else, and also one of the better studio shows that they've ever had? I think there's a chance, but I would also say this: if Warner doesn't keep it, it's just as fine, because if you've watched the Premier League before, I promise you the studio show that is coming from NBC is going to be so awesome. You're not going to miss Inside the NBA in 3 years.
I kind of tend to agree with you that if Inside the NBA goes, obviously I would hate it. It's an entertaining product. I love watching it. But at the same time, it would go out on top. It wouldn't. This is the best crew they've ever had, and they've been together. This surprised me when I read it. They've been together since 2011. They've been together. This crew has been together a long time, but it might be time for something new. It might be time for something fresh. And whatever NBC puts together, we know it's going to be 10 times better than what ESPN still is trotting out there. You cannot be worse. I swear to God, I heard Kendrick Perkins on the air before a playoff game. He called Tyrese Halliburton. First he called him Tyler Halliburton, and then he got a second crack at it, Nata. He got a second crack at it, and Perk called him Tyler Hamburton. If he had had a third, I'm pretty sure Tyler was going to become a hamburger.
Yeah, no, Tyler Hamburglar.
It was so close.
It was so close. That's the thing. NBC is going to end up being between NBC and Amazon. We're gonna be in the salad days of NBA studio shows. Most of y'all don't really watch them anyway. But for the hardcores, the diehards, the sickos, those of us that want that really good coverage, that really journalistic edge to it, that storytelling aspect of this, NBC is going to give that to us. And then not only that, you're going to have Amazon doing most of the streaming work. Hopefully they take over League Pass as well. But if you're going to get all of that, You're going to get better storytelling. You're going to get a better product. I promise you, you're going to get better than inside the NBA. And like Doug, like you said, it's going to go out on top and we can have fond memories of everything. And as always, the internet never dies. So if we really miss them, we can always watch those old clips of who he played for.
And you just talked a lot about what we're going to get more of. I mean, there's also a chance that we get a little less Reggie. Oops, I said it. Oops, I said it. Walker doesn't agree with me. But all right, so last chance, not a chance. This one comes courtesy of Grant Williams, who tweeted, honestly, I think the next expansion should be in Charlotte for the WNBA. Bring back the Sting, one of the best teams and markets back in the day, and we need it back for the city. I miss going to games. Who's with me? This accumulated 1.6 thousand likes, 344 retweets. So there are a few people out there that want to bring back the Sting. And look, the WNBA is getting a lot of exposure right now with Caitlin Clark tearing things up in Indiana. So, and Schnall and Plotkin, they're looking to expand this Spectrum Center area into an entertainment district. They're investing even more in the practice facility now. So what do you think? Chance, not a chance. Schnall and Plotkin. They get some more good graces of Charlotte, and they bring back the Sting.
I'd say chance, but also I would put this at single digits for two reasons. One, I think the time for the Sting to come back was before Charlotte FC showed up. I think it's going to be very, very hard to get parents and kids to come to games when you have Charlotte FC that's already up and running. You have the Knights that are downtown, that are basically uptown, and have been an institution in uptown for the better part of 7 or 8 years. You're talking about a very othery crowd that you are trying to get to go to Spectrum Center, and that's if they get Spectrum Center. We're not sure. This could be going to Bojangles for all we know. I think I like their chances a lot better. For me, my preference, let's put this team in Greensboro. You have the swarm facilities already there. You have infrastructure. It splits the difference between Charlotte and Raleigh. It makes more sense to put it there than it does Charlotte at this point.
Maybe, but I think, and I hate that it has to be this way, but I wonder if the Hornets are able to put something together here in the next year or two with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball stays healthy as a max level player, and they go out and they get that Mikal Bridges level player with some of their draft picks, and they really make a run at this thing, and they win a playoff series. This city is so hungry to fall in love with basketball once again. If they can do that, then I think you could springboard that, and then maybe the WNBA by that point will be ready to expand a little bit into some other markets. I think Charlotte would be primed at that point, but I think you're right in that the city there has to be some motivation to get back out there and watch basketball again. And for too many years now, Charlotte, the Hornets and the Bobcats before them have not provided that. But hope springs eternal for the Hornets, for the Sting. Thank you so much. That's Chance, Not a Chance, and that is Nata Edwards, producer of the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Thank you. I'm going to say thank you twice, once for me, once for Walker, because he's scared of you. He's scared of you. He doesn't want to be on this show when you're on the show, and I think you should call him up and let him know that.
Oh no, I'm absolutely gonna call him, and I'm gonna punk him as soon as we quite literally as soon as we finish rapping.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. For Walker and Nata and all of you out there who are supporting this show, go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte. See you tomorrow.